Kugisaki-chan! That's how I feel right now. And I know my friends completely share that sentiment.
I'm not okay.
I have to ask now because we've gotten to this point. Did you know about this one, Mina?
I got spoiled on this one like a week before it happened, but all I knew is that it was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen now, so I was not ready for that.
The pain train. Pain, 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 but pain, 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 pain.
You are my special.
No one is special here because they're all dying. No one's special to Gege.
Oof. Well, I mean, Gojo's special in the sense that Gege hates Gojo, but that's a different topic. Gege literally admitted Gojo's the worst or something like that, and I was like, you need to be stopped. Stop hating on my snack of a man.
He is a snack of a man.
He is a snack.
You cannot deny.
That is actually how you say snack in Japanese. It's Satoru Goju.
Oh, man.
Yep.
All right, well, let's just hop in because there's no point in avoiding this. So, this episode foreshadows the end pretty well. Nobara opens the episode. She says that she can't be the only one staying behind when everyone else is going head on into the fight. Mina, how did this scene hit you since you've cosplayed Nobara? And Emily, how did you feel they set this up in comparison to the manga?
Oh, I mean, this is like, we're going to get into it, but it's really hard to like watch some of this stuff as a manga reader knowing what's coming. And I sometimes feel as though having it animated and like elaborated upon almost makes it worse because you're like more endeared by the characters, but also it's like you know what's coming. So it almost feels like as a manga reader, like it you're just like waiting for like the shoe to drop. And it I don't know. Something about like getting to hear their voice and like getting insight into like some of their thoughts or like their memories like we do in this episode a little bit later on, like it just really makes it hurt more than a couple panels on a page. As much as the panels can also hurt, I think that it humanizes them more to like have the animation and to have like a genuine human voice behind that too. Like the anime just continues to elaborate upon what's been in the manga and continues to make it better and to make it shine as much as some of this stuff sucks.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Emily. Obviously, like I'm still not a manga reader on JJK, but like for the other shows that I've watched, when it comes to fruition on the screen, it's a very different feeling than when you see it, when you read it on a panel, because of that like emotional drive of the voice acting, the music, or lack of music sometimes. So I know the pain, just not in this situation as much. However, I actually was talking to some of my cosplay friends about this after this episode aired, to touch on what you asked me, Brian, about cosplaying her. First of all, I did not know this was going to happen when I cosplayed her at all. I had only been spoiled on one death in Shibuya, and that happened the week before this. But when you cosplay a character, like, and if anyone who's listening to this cosplays characters at all, you might understand how I feel. You feel, even if it's a character that you didn't necessarily like adore beforehand or whatever, you have like an emotional connection to them once you like cosplay them, because it's weird because like you put on the costume and it's like you're still who you are. It's just you're expressing yourself in a different way. When you go to like a convention or you do a photo shoot and you've got your friends and you've got a group of other JJK like cosplayers with you, like you feel all of a sudden like you are that person almost, and it feels weird. So to have cosplayed her so recently, I did her cosplay at the end of October, so it hasn't been that much time, to then find ourselves in this situation is like, it makes it hurt way more, honestly. Even though like Nobara I've always loved, but she's never been that high in my list of favorite characters. But now that I've cosplayed her, it just feels different. So it's like, man, now you're ripping my heart out.
Yeah, I figured that was kind of something that I wanted to touch on, because I feel like you cosplaying Nobara really brings an interesting point to this episode, since and I really wanted to hear about kind of your emotional connection to the character. So I think that was a really interesting kind of thing to hear about. So thank you for sharing kind of your emotional vulnerability with that character. Now, we got to Itadori and Mahito still duking it out from the last episode, and Mahito, he's doing Mahito things, let's be real here, as well as Nobara versus Mahito. Now, this is something that we kind of experienced in Demon Slayer, the Swordsmith Village arc, where there's a lot of jumping around and there's a lot of moving parts. How do you feel that the studio is handling all of these moving parts, and how do you feel about the cohesion of the story right now? Do you feel like it's cohesive? Do you feel like we're kind of adjointed? Because I know that this can be kind of something that's difficult to follow because of how many moving pieces there are.
I think the bouncing around of this arc has been my one major complaint of it, and I don't think that it's poorly done or anything. I think it's just, for me, especially as an anime only, I've found it hard to follow a little bit more than average, because I think my biggest issue is we haven't seen Mei, who just met up with Geto, for 7 episodes or something like that, and I know we're also getting close to the end, so it's more of a just I feel like everything's kind of not getting wrapped up in any way, shape, or form, and this arc is a lot longer than something like Swordsmith Village was, so I'm struggling a little bit. I don't think that it's because it's poorly done or anything like that. It's just my preferences. It's not cohesive to me, but that's not that's just me. That's just who I am and what I look for in a show. And I even struggled a little bit in Demon Slayer, especially when I read the manga for Swordsmith Village. I did not know what was going on the entire time. I finished the arc and I was like, okay, what just happened? So I still think it's a really well done season, and I've definitely gotten more into the show with it, but I'm struggling a little bit with how jumping around we are.
I think that's so interesting because I actually disagree. I'm gonna, of course, disagree a little bit, but I personally am a big fan of non-linear storytelling. So either something that jumps between the past and present. I love time traveling shows. I think that Tokyo Revengers is a show that does that really well, and I've really enjoyed it. And I'm not a manga reader for that. That's one I'm an anime only for, and I'm not caught up. So I'm gonna need to get back on that. But from what I've seen, that show handles it really well. And anytime you can play around with time, I just always find that really interesting. And what's interesting here is I don't even know if calling it non-linear is exactly correct, because things are still happening in sequential order. It's just that a lot of things are happening in a lot of different places at the same time. And I think that I think it's really cool, because I think that it lends a more realistic view to the chaos that's happening in Shibuya right now, as in it's not supposed to feel, or I think that these sorcerers went in not really expecting what it was going to be, and weren't fully equipped or prepared for the war that essentially is happening. I don't know that they all fully grasped or even had the concept of what would begin to happen if something like Gojo getting sealed were to manifest. So I really, really like the way that it's handled, because even if it is confusing, it's I think that that's very realistic. It's oh my gosh, there's 10 different fights happening in 10 different places. What happened to Mei or whoever? What happened? Where's Panda and the other guy after all this crazy shit, and all these fights one after another keep happening. And that's to me, that's why this is the Shibuya incident, because it was too much for them to handle. So I feel that's represented really well in the chaotic shifts, and that it is hard to follow a little bit, because also it's hard for our sorcerers that are there to follow. It's poor Yuji is in the middle of 3 of them, but there's also other people elsewhere dealing with different shit that he doesn't even know about yet, because it's just geographically in different locations. So it's this is a rough fight, and they're not winning. The good guys are not winning right now. So that's my opinion. I don't know. I really like the use of the chaos, because I think it's real.
Yeah, I don't think it's poorly done or anything. I think it's done really well. It's just something that I have a hard time following, because to me, it just, I feel I don't have any closure at all for anything. Everything's been left up. And for me, it's more of because I don't know what's to come, and I know there's only 4 or 5 episodes left. I'm are we gonna get any type of closure? I don't think so, and I have to just come to terms with that fact.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, and this could probably be said about like the new Dark Three, the Dark Trio, or whatever, but it's interesting that things don't get like wrapped up with like a bow on top. But you know, like it's like they might not beat the bad guy, and like as much as we love Demon Slayer, of course, it's like so far we can rely on Tanjiro and crew to like clean up a little bit by the end, even if there's like some loss or like some injury certainly in the interim. But it's like this one, it's like I don't know. And I feel like they set that precedent very early on with like Junpei and all that. It's like, oh, like they're not and now we've seen like several more people in this arc. It's like, oh yeah, fuck.
And I will say that even though Demon Slayer wraps things up, and I would say even the story is maybe like more simple in that sense, that doesn't make it any less of a story. I think it just is a different story, and it's definitely still just as emotionally impactful for me. So I definitely want to just chime in on that part. But we kind of go forward here, and Nobara says something that really speaks to my hard-headedness, because sometimes you just have to try something knowing it's futile. How does this further characterize our baddie and show kind of more of her personality?
I mean, I love Nobara. I think she's so funny, and we've talked about this, but I really just like love the women in JJK, and I know that even that's like come under like close speculation in like the last week, because of like what happens in this episode. I don't know. I personally still think that like the women in JJK are badasses, and I think it's really cool that none of them are like really sexualized in like the ways that you have come to kind of expect of some of the other animes that we all know and love. Obviously Mei's weird, but like her brother's weird too, and I don't know. It's just something about like the way that the women are depicted feels like they have more agency. Like even though she's weird, I would not describe her as a character that doesn't have agency over like her own decisions, as selfish as they might be and as much as we might not like her. On the flip side of that, somebody like Nobara is really, really cool, and she's always done exactly what she wants to do. And she is like hard-headed, and she's loud, and she's like not afraid to come in and like tell them exactly what she's thinking and like what she's about, even though she was the last to join our little trio of first years. I don't know. So like the fact that she wants to like even though she knows who Mahito is from like the reports that she's heard, just wanting to take him on, I like it just totally falls in line with her character, and I think it's like really cool, but also like kind of funny. Like she kind of just got her ass kicked by Haruta like not very long ago in the course of this evening, and she's like, no, like I think I could do it. And also you're a fugly skank. So she's like she's just like me for real. She's so cool.
Yeah, she's super cool. And watching the scene, I was like, I get it. Like, I get being that hard-headed sometimes where it's like, you know, like, and granted, I'm not in situations like her where it's like, it's futile and I'm going to keep fighting this person that's probably just going to end up killing me eventually because, you know, they're clearly like that strong. But I'm more in a situation where it's like, sometimes I have those conversations where it's just like, I'm too hard-headed and I just need to stop. Like the other person's too hard-headed as well. But I just want to keep going. I want to prove my point. I want to be like strong and be the person that's right, I guess. I don't know. So in a way it's relatable, but she is very much a badass in this, and she's definitely holding her own too, which is really, really cool to see her fighting against Mahito like this. Not having that experience of fighting him like many of the other characters do, even though like she knows about him, they've talked about him and how to take him down and what, you know, to make sure that you don't let him touch you and that sort of thing. So she's using her brain as well. But I agree with Emily. I think I've definitely seen a lot of the female characters in Jujutsu Kaisen kind of come under scrutiny after this, and I don't really necessarily agree with that. I see it with Demon Slayer characters too, you know, like I think all the female characters in Demon Slayer are really well done. But, you know, the moment one of them shows boobs, everyone's like, like, no, they're just sexualized. They're just there. It's like, okay, wait. And it's the same with like JJK. It's like the moment one of them dies, it's like, They were just used as a vehicle for the main character who's a boy. And it's like, I think that's kind of a shallow way of thinking. I think that what Nobara went through in this episode showed just how important she was to the fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Nobara being so hard-headed is really interesting. I think she brings something else to the trio that neither Megumi or Itadori can kind of fulfill. So I think that's a really interesting kind of contrast she brings in kind of how she views enemies and how she views battles. So I think it's a really just kind of nice, refreshing take. Nonetheless, she does land a devastating blow against Mahito with her soul resonance, which was really cool. And let's just talk about the aftermath of her well thought through plan, from her nails to kind of Yuji beating the shit out of Mahito and everything in between.
That was so satisfying to see Yuji beating the shit out of him. I was like, yes, do it. Go, yes, do it. Yeah. I've never sat there and cheered more. But this kind of like, to back up what I just said about like the female characters in Jujutsu Kaisen and Nobara specifically, what she did, first of all, she was able to figure out that the Mahito that she was fighting was a double fairly quickly. And then the blow, like being able to do that and then affect the actual real Mahito to help, like if it weren't for her, Yuji would not have been able to do what he did there. And he's even thanking her. He knows that she is fighting, and that she is helping him. And he's like, I wouldn't get there without you. And I think that just goes to show how strong she is. Kind of like Megumi, kind of like Yuji. It's like these are all first year students that are so freaking strong and have so much potential. And she's a badass. And I was like cheering so much during the scene because Yuji's just beating him down. Nobara is chasing after the double because like they start to run and it's just like there's chaos, but it felt like, okay, like maybe the tables are turning.
I mean, she came in, kicked ass, and took names, like, so much so that even Mahito, like, had this moment where he's like, oh, Yuji Itadori is not my only natural enemy. There's, like, somebody else with a technique that works really well against mine. And it's been a while since we've seen Nobara's technique as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it like, her straw doll and her resonance it's just, like, so cool and so effective at long distance enemies, which we have not seen a whole lot of, because like Yuji is like a close combat kind of guy, and a lot of the other people are too. So getting to see something that was like finally effective from not just like a long distance, but like a distance so far that it's like not even in the same building or like in the same area, and have it work so well was like really satisfying to see somebody finally land a hit on this guy. So I thought it was done really, really well and was very gratifying in the moment.
Yeah, I think watching that, I love the OST that was going on here. After she landed that hit, it was so beautiful. I was like, damn, this is like motivating as shit right now. I was like, yes, let's go, Nobara. And I love the way that they kind of just brought you to like a really happy place almost. Like, even though I love Mahito and all the things that like the character portrays, I still was like, fuck you, Mahito. You deserve that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just very happy to kind of see all of this culminate. Now, of course, we can't dwell on the happiness forever because we get to the hallway scene. The chase ends and we see something so unfortunate, quite literal slap in the face.
Yeah, this sucks. The whole time, like, watching this episode, I just remember thinking, like, poor Yuji. Like, oh my god, poor Yuji. He's seen, like, so much stuff already. Like, our poor sweet boy, like, just needs to... He's just been around so much death, like, since episode 1. Like, starting with his grandpa, Junpei, Gojo got sealed, Nanami died right in front of him, Nobara is not necessarily confirmed dead, but things are not looking so good in this moment. And it's like, I feel like you can generally like insinuate what has probably happened, and it's just like, poor Yuji. But I also remember reading this scene in the manga, and at least in this episode, I'm not sure what they're going to do next week, but I will say it felt like they tried to give her a slightly gentler send off, because I felt like, I don't know, and we'll probably get to this in a bit too, but like the imagery that we know is coming was a bit softer, I think, than what we saw in the manga. I felt like it was more graphic. So
Yuji's desperate plea for her to run when he realizes what Mahito is doing, because he thought that Mahito was going to, like, you know, converge and get stronger, when instead he just kept running and switched so that, you know, the actual body would run after Nobara, who wasn't, like, prepared. His plea for her to run, you guys know how much I, like, adore voice acting, and we talked a little bit about how, like, that's one of the reasons why I think things like this hit different in anime compared to manga, is because of how much emotion goes into the voice acting. But Yuji's voice actor in this moment, I was like, I felt the pain. Like, I felt his, like, desperate, like, he just watched Nanami die. I think it's, like, what was, like, 15 minutes ago, according to canon, or something along those lines. And he does not want to watch his best friend, like, die as well. He already had to watch teacher and someone he looked at as, like, a mentor. And that, like, hit me hard, because when I witness, like, character deaths and that sort of thing, it's always the reaction of the people around that gets to me the most. And so I don't want to dwell on that line, but, like, literally all he said was, like, Kugisaki, run. That's all he said. And it was like, oh my God, like, it was so tough to listen to, and that brought me to tears. And now things, you know, like, he just touched her on the face, and on a spot where it's like, yeah, she's screwed. Like,
I will say, I do have theories and I have hope, because Emily touched on this, like, it being a softer piece to see in the anime. And I also think something Mahito said kind of gives us maybe hope that she isn't fully dead, that there could be some hope here. He said, I wasn't able to finish off the 3-7 sorcerer in one hit. Let's see if I can do it this time. I think that gives us some hope that maybe at some point she'll come back. In the manga, she hasn't come back. But as Emily says, maybe that's just copium. And so,
heavy
hopefully.
dose. I'll take one, please. A copium for the road.
But, of course, this moment can't just end. We have to go through a whole flashback. And so, let's go ahead and talk about Nobara's backstory. And let's just discuss the entire flashback scene. And we'll kind of go until we see Saori-chan in the present.
she was really kind, but in a funny way. She was very independent and strong-willed, but, you know, there's this girl who's getting bullied for having a blue backpack, I think was, or was it red? I can't remember the color that, like, everyone thought was weird. And Nobara is just like, I'll take it. And, like, catches the girl. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And just to see her, like, develop this friendship with someone, I feel like Nobara has always, like, she's obviously developed these friendships with Megumi and Yuji, but she's always kind of acted like, I don't know how to explain it, like, not an outcast, but just like,
Snooty.
boys. Yeah, snooty. And I think this backstory, like, there were no parents for her present, so I don't know what's going on with that, and I can't remember if, like, they talked about that all in season 1, but she just felt very, like, she was there for this girl, and she was very kind, and she was very alone, is what I kind of got from it. And it's really sad. Like, I feel like she had, like, a really difficult childhood, and because of that she was kind to other people who had difficulties, and I think she, because of that, when she sees like groups of friends, she's more snooty with them, is kind of what I got from it.
Yeah, this flashback hurt, and it's interesting because even though we're like, I feel like based on the context, you would like assume that this is like Nobara having like her life flashing before her eyes, but we're not hearing it from her mouth, which I thought was like very unique. That it's almost like something's happened, and like these other two women that were like in her life at an earlier point are almost thinking about her in that moment, like invisible string theory or something like that. It's like they're like, oh, like I wonder how Nobara's doing, like in this moment that things are not looking so well. I thought that was very different for this character, that like the flashback is coming from somebody else, and we've seen this flashback to like from Nobara's point of view. It was a while, I think it was in season 1, but like we've heard her talk about like Sayori before, and like how devastated she was to like see what had happened, and like how she was rejected by the people surrounding her. So it's interesting to see it from like the point of view of the people that adore her the most. So like seeing this like childhood friend remember what it was like to be like protected by somebody stronger, which is what she's gone on to Jujutsu High to try to do for like a greater scope of people. And like, you know, seeing Sayori like even as an adult, just reflecting on like, oh, she was like such a cute kid. It's like very, I thought it was very eerie, but like also very sweet. So maybe melancholy is the right word, that like in this moment it's like, I don't know, these other people are like thinking about her. I thought it was tasteful, but eerie.
Yeah, I thought that this is a really interesting way to put it, because you're seeing someone really this lost connection, or you're seeing kind of how all these things work out. So it was just a very interesting way to kind of put this scene. Now, after kind of the flashback happens, we do cut to Saori, and she's at her office late night working, and she's actually wondering about Nobara. How did you feel knowing that this had lost their connection but still thought about each other in like kind of their final moments?
I mean, I thought that this was like really tastefully and realistically done. Like I just mentioned, it's very eerie that it's like it was like something alerted them to be like, you know what, like I haven't thought about Nobara in a while. Like I wonder how she's doing. And I think that we probably, just like as humans, have all had people like that in our lives at one point or another, like people that we were like absolutely best friends with that we've lost contact with over the years, or like don't talk to as often, but like we still think about them every now and then. So I thought that this was portrayed in a really realistic way. But this one's interesting because Sayori kind of represented like an elder sister kind of figure to them, and so it's like interesting to see her like working in an office and wondering like, oh, I wonder if she'd still think that I'm like as cool as she did back then, because back then I was just older and like tried to be nice, so they thought I was the coolest thing. But it's different when you get older. Like once you become an adult, you realize that like nobody around you that is an adult knows what they're doing. Everyone's just like, I don't know. I thought it was like realistic and like kind of funny, but I was curious about Sayori, and I don't think that Sayori's come up again in the manga, but I was like so curious to see if like she was somehow some kind of secret jujutsu sorcerer too. Because it's like, oh, this person like comes to this town for no reason, and then they blame all these weird things that start happening on her and like making her house all weird. And she's here like, I don't know. I was very curious, and I maybe that's like my jujutsu conspiracy that like nobody cares about this character, but like I'm like, but it's got to be something, right? I don't know. That's me purely speculating, but either way, I thought that this moment was like, it was sweet to see how much she was adored, that they adored her as much as she adored them in her version of the flashback that happened a while ago.
I feel like them showing Saori right when, because they're talking, or she's talking with her coworker about like there's something going on in Shibuya. So like this is happening, I think, simultaneously. And I think it almost goes to show, like Emily mentioned, like Nobara's backstory is not from her point of view. It was from Fumi was her name, like more of her point of view, which is interesting. And so maybe it is like showing that in this moment, it's almost like Fumi and Saori, because they were so close with her, like both had this like spiritual connection to make them like think about her and be like, oh, I hope she's okay. And it's like, if that's what happened right then, I'm just gonna stop.
It's okay. I don't want you to lose your mascara and your eyeshadow that you have on. It's too pretty to lose. So we'll just kind of go on from here. Now we get that one last flashback, of course, and I say that I don't want you to lose your makeup, yet I ask another question about it, so sorry, not sorry. But we get that one last flashback, and we see how Nobara says, I'm sorry, Fumi, I can't keep our promise. These moments have shown a different side of our usually cold character that we see in the present. How did these change your perception of Nobara?
I mean, this is when I officially started losing it when I was watching the episode. Just seeing, like, because I remember her referring to the chairs and in her life and filling them with people that she cared about, and seeing Gojo and Megumi and Yuji there, and then also seeing Fumi. You know, like, her parents weren't even there. And again, I say, like, obviously, I don't know if they were just, like, not around or not great parents, whatnot. Like, they don't seem to really specify that, but these people really care, or she cares a lot about these people if they are there when she's like about to die, right? And something about a character saying like, sorry, I can't keep our promise, because they promised each other that when they got older they would all meet up again, you know, when she left for Tokyo and left Fumi behind in that small village and was crying about it, and, you know, saying like, let's meet up again and let's do it with Saori. But in this moment, Nobara is like, I can't fulfill that promise. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, this hurts. I thought that this was told really well from the friend's point of view, because there was like this very sweet moment of them remembering saying goodbye to Saori like as children, and she's like, that was like the last time I saw Nobara cry, but she was like sobbing when she left. And then she's, you know, as she's like sending her off to Jujutsu High, she's like, I had this horrible thought that like, oh, she wouldn't cry for me the same way. And it seems that way because they're like a little bit older, but then like you see her turn around and she's losing it again. And it's like, it's just pure. And it's like, even if she's hard-headed and has like a very strong personality, she deeply, deeply cares about her friends. And that's been true with like the new friends that she's made in Yuji and Megumi, but it's also true of these friends that are, you know, as old as her childhood. And she's the one who like initiated the promise in the first place. She's like, the next time we see each other, like, let's have it be all three of us. And now she's like the one that knows that she's breaking it, and there's probably nobody more disappointed by that than she is. And that really, really sucks. You never know, like, when it's going to be the last time that you say bye to somebody. So I think that, like, this scene is, like, a really nice but very sad convergence of, like, these other two people thinking about her, and Nobara as well having her life flash before her eyes in the same moment. Like, any regrets that she might have, I think that this is one of the biggest ones for her.
Yeah, and kind of as you were saying, right, those little regrets. We see something that kind of contradicts that, but Nobara's final words being, life wasn't so bad. Fuck, dude.
Yep. Took the words right out of my mouth. I don't know. Again, now that we're here and we're officially like at this scene where we see exactly what physically happens to her, I do think that this was done gentler than what we saw in the manga. We saw like from the front what happens to Nobara in the manga, and granted, like, I do not know what we have in store for us next week, if they're gonna like shift the POV a little bit, which is possible. Part of me feels like there are probably some censorship requirements for like Japanese broadcast television, so we saw it obviously like from the back, and we can still tell that like whatever has just happened is very gruesome, and it's like these poor people just like don't deserve this. Like, we just saw this happen. We just saw Nanami's, like, horrific death. Now we're seeing Nobara as, like, the result of one touch from Mahito. And it's like these people have, like, these lives and these friends, and, like, they just don't deserve this, but this is, like, the cruel world that Jujutsu Kaisen exists within. And poor Yuji. That's, like, as I'm watching this, I'm like, as sad as this is about Nobara, if she's gone, she's gone, but Yuji's the one that still has to, like, do something and is still here and has to watch all of this. Like, it's just, like, so much. And there's a lot of people that are dropping the show now because they're like, I can't do this. They're like, who's next? So-and-so? And then all the manga readers are like...
bombastic side eye.
I have to laugh through the pain.
Me too.
I mean, it's not that bad after this. That's a lie. I'm sorry. That's a lie.
It's not a good lie either, Brian.
You're about as good at lying as Tanjiro is.
Can't be that bad, right? Dear readers, it was that bad. Oh, boy.
One of my friends brought up, and I hadn't thought about this, both Nanami and Nobara had to, when they were about to die, like literally like mere seconds away, they had to kind of be like, say a positive thing to Yuji so that they didn't turn into curses that he had to fight. And I hadn't thought about that. I kind of forgot like the rules of how that worked. And I think it's like something along the lines of like, if someone gets touched by Mahito and is like begging to come back or whatever, like they'll just turn into curses, and they had to kind of like just give him positive words in order to make it so that he didn't have to fight them and kill them. Like, that's all I can say.
Yeah. This is a really tough episode, and again, not very many happy moments. So I think we can put this to rest now. We fleshed out enough that we can. But let's just hop into our favorite moments. I think some of my favorite moments were the OST. And so the OST was really great because I think it came in really well with kind of after Nobara landed her hit. I think that was a really great moment. I think that even when Yuji was fighting Mahito before she landed her hit, I felt like it was kind of getting like a dubstep OST a little bit in the background. It made some of the moments in the episode a little bit more bearable. And I think that with it being so upbeat, it gave a kind of a contrast to the episode, as like we felt like that high in the very early point of the episode, but we knew that that was the apex from right there.
I'm gonna say it again. This episode sucked. There's no favorite moments for me, and this time I think I'm serious. I'll go with the OST as well. Okay. As tough as it is, I'll say it because, again, like I said, I'm someone who really enjoys good voice acting, and it's Yuji's voice actor. He's been killing it. He's been slaying. Like, so I'll just say all of his moments and his like Kugisaki at the end, that sent me. So I'll say that.
Yeah, this is a rough one to pick from, but I do think there were like some cool and like some really heartwarming moments. So, I mean, obviously her actually landing a hit on Mahito was like cool as hell. That was like really, really well done. And of course the OST that ties into that moment. But for me, I think that my favorite was actually like in the flashback, that scene on the train where her friend was like, oh, she's not going to cry for me the same way that she did. And then when she turns around, it's just like that mutual understanding, like without words, like Nobara's like losing it again. And then like the friend starts to tear up because she realizes like, oh, like I am cherished just as much. Like that was like where I lost it too. And it was death or not, to immediately follow that scene was like very, very sweet. So that one I think has lingered with me the longest.
Yeah, I think overall that episode gave us not a lot to be happy for, but I think it did give us, really touching moments, and I think that was more so the point of the episode. Again, this is the Dark Trio, so I don't think, we're not watching Spy Family, unfortunately. No Anya Starlight throw to save the day. But anything else before we wrap this one up? Well, being on theme with Nobara this week, our Shibuya secret is actually about our queen. This comes from the official guide to the anime for season 1 of JJK. Her page and her set shares an interesting tidbit about her, and this is a direct quote from the book. She values her identity and even boasts that she will risk her life in order to be herself. I think that quote really resonates well with the way that she shined in her final moments, and I think that really reflects the overall, mantra of the episode. So that is all that we have for today. I hope that you all enjoyed the episode and that you'll hopefully join us again next week. Don't forget to subscribe if you're on YouTube and hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we upload new stuff like shorts and or our videos. If you're on Spotify, don't forget, download the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, maybe answer one of our questions, and give us a comment. Please give us that follow on TikTok. That's at Hashira Half Hour, as well on Instagram at Hashira Half Hour. On X, we're at Hashira Half. And we'll see you again next week. Of course, Yo Imo.
Yo Imo.
Yo, Imo.
Yo.
Those were the saddest.
Why?
Yo, why,
Yo.
Mo?
Why Mo Pain?
Oh, God. Stop it. There are no Megan Thee Stallion noises needed for this.
Yes, Megan Thee Stallion noises.
All you see is Megan Thee Stallion popping out the background next to Sakuna.
Megan Me the Stallion.
Oh, no!
Okay.
Oh,
All right, y'all.